Welcome to the Dental 18 podcast. We're your hosts, Kiera Dent
and Dr. Mark Costas.
Mark and I had this crazy idea that maybe we could combine a dentist and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. And Dental 18 podcast was created.
I'm a practicing dentist, a multiple practice owner, a dental performance coach, and the founder of the Dental Success Institute.
I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, current practice owner, and international dental consultant. Mark and I don't just understand you, we are you.
Our goal is to positively impact the world of dentistry by sharing our lessons learned from the road in hundreds of dental offices.
Two perspectives, one mission, to help dental professionals reach their full potential. Welcome to the Dental 18 podcast. Hey, Dental 18 listeners. Today is Kiera Dent, and I am flying with Summer Kassmel. Summer Kassmel, you guys, I am so excited. Summer has decided to join me on this podcast. Summer is one of my longtime friends. We actually met through the DSI Consulting. I went to her office and we met, and it was honestly, you know, when you just find those people that you click with, that they get you, that you understand. Well, that's Summer. But Summer is even way cooler than that because she's also a dentist. She is an incredible friend and she thinks outside the box. And so I'm super excited. You guys are going to hear a lot from Summer because Summer is one of my heroes. She's somebody that I aspire to be like, and she is one of the most incredible leaders I've ever met. So I am super, super excited. This is Summer. Summer, how are you today?
I am great. How are you, Kiera?
Doing really well. I'm excited. I've been dying to have you on the podcast because I think you can add so much value. So it was a pretty hefty intro there for you. Hope you're feeling good with that one.
I know. I don't know if actually all of that is completely true, but I'm really grateful. Thank you so much. It's so much fun to get to talk to you.
Absolutely. So just so you guys know, we're going to put this teaser out there. Summer and I are actually going to be doing an event this coming year in October. So stay tuned. You guys are going to fall in love with Summer. She's going to be I think her podcast will be some of the top downloaded podcasts that we'll have because you're going to just get a lot of nuggets. So as always on the Dental Aid team, we just dive right into it. And I brought Summer on this one because this morning her and I were on a phone call and we started talking about team meetings, and Summer has like dialed in team meetings. She's up in Vail, Colorado. So I want to kind of give a background of her practice, but I don't think I can do it justice. So I think we should have Summer kind of give you a little intro of who she is and her story a little bit before we dive into the meetings so you know exactly who you're listening to today. So Summer, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, so I actually practice near Vail, Colorado. I've actually been here since 2004 in a little town west of there called Eagle, Colorado. For people who ski, they usually kind of know this area. But I was an associate previously, and I purchased my practice, moved here in 2004, and I practiced dentistry solo for over a decade, grew the practice, tried to have my two kids and family life and everything. And, you know, what I found is I definitely got burnt out by wearing all the hats and trying to be everything to everybody all the time. And so I came to find out after having a couple of years of consistent pain and things like that in my back, in my kind of hip area, that I actually had hip dysplasia, and I had severe arthritis and things like that. And so I knew coming up I was going to have to undergo some pretty massive surgeries that would actually have to be staged and a couple of years worth of treatment and things like that. So kind of as a last ditch effort, I was either going to have to sell my practice, close things down, or figure out how to bring quickly an associate in and almost have an associate driven model and still be able to pay myself. And so I had quite a steep learning curve that I had to do pretty quickly. And what's amazing, Kiera, and you of course know this, but it turned out, despite 4 surgeries over 4 years, it actually ended up being the best thing ever. I kind of fell in love with the business of dentistry, and I fell in love with leadership and women dental teams, and really learning the ins and outs of everything it takes to run a really successful, profitable business and not actually having to be the one in the dental chair. So I grew Eagle, and I've actually since merged in another office, and we have another doctor here now and several hygienists. And then I actually bought a second practice in a town closer to Vail, actually last year, and that's been an associate-driven model as well. So, I'm really kind of in a strange way grateful for the opportunity to have had the chance to kind of step away and see things from a 10-foot view, because it really actually changed the whole trajectory of my life, truthfully.
I love this story, and I love that you have taken the life that you were given. And I mean, all of us have some piece of our life that's not ideal, or that changes us, or creates these mountains for us to stumble upon. But I love that you've taken this, and instead of it being like, woe is me, I can't be a dentist anymore, it's, hey, this is what I can do, and this is how I'm doing it. And guys, I'm going to brag about Summer real quick. Summer doesn't just have profitable practices. She has extremely profitable practices. She runs them very, very smartly. I've seen her numbers. I've seen her practice. I've seen her offices. And she just runs a very fantastic office, but she's also super profitable. And I love, and it's not that she has the highest numbers of production. She does well, but she just runs the business very smartly. And I love that you also empower your teams, and you're a female doctor. And I think so many pieces of this are just fun to like dive into. It's a huge topic that you and I love to go around and around on, but I love your story, and I love the person that you are and the example you are to so many other offices.
Oh, well, thank you. And I will say too, and this isn't a plug for you, Kiera, but a couple of years ago, having you come out, even after being a dentist for such a long time, it was so enlightening, because I agree with you. We sat down and it was just like, we could have talked forever. And you kind of in one fell swoop were able to find solutions to problems that had been plaguing us for, a couple of years. And, for me, that was such a wonderful turning point too, to have another set of eyes, seeing things from a different point of view. And like I said, problems that had been plaguing us, you were so quick to just find, okay, here's what you need, and try that. And you kind of refused to let us say no.
I'm a little persistent that way.
yes. You were like, you know what? No, don't let the fear prevail. Just get in there and give it a try, and don't stop until you tried everything. And we did so many things that we said wouldn't work. They did. And we're still doing them today. So
well, thank you. So we can just give a massive shout out to our favorite Mark Costas for bringing us together. And, this wouldn't be here. So I think it's a fun little triangle that we have of Summer, Kiera, Mark. And I mean, this is like the magic of DSI on so many levels. So Mark Costas, we're giving you massive love and shout outs, because this is why Summer and I are even on this podcast. So Mark is the sole reason for this episode. But okay, so you guys now, you're going to learn more about Summer throughout. I plan to have Summer on several podcasts with me, but I just want you guys to get a good quick picture before we dive in, because we talked, Mark and I chatted about team meetings and kind of the wigs and the lead and the lags. And I mentioned, having the outcomes and the targets. So if you didn't listen to that episode, be sure to hop back over there. But Summer and I are going to take that another step further, because we were chatting about meetings, and I think we have a little bit different ideas of how we can spin your brains to think about these meetings. So Summer, let's dive right into that, and let's give our listeners some solid nuggets, because you and I are very tactical and practical in the way we approach life.
Yes. Well, one thing, and I apologize, I haven't listened to that podcast yet, but really maintaining a sense of cadence.
I recorded it this morning. I'm just going to confess that there's no way you could have. So guys, she wasn't failing.
Phew. Okay. Well, what I was going to say too is that, I think making sure that you have a consistent cadence, in the practices is really important. So we actually happen to have ours, on Tuesday afternoon at lunch. And we make them short and concise, and there's an agenda every time. And we really go through department by department and let each person kind of say, this was my goal, this is how I measured it, and this is how it was tracked. Did you succeed or did you not? And if you did not, we want to know the reasons why you did not, and not being excuses, but truly what were the barriers for you to be able to get there.
Ooh, I love this. I want to dive right in, because I love that you don't just surface level with your team. You dive deeper on it. It's like, I didn't make it. Okay, well, let's talk about why. And I think so many offices are so scared to I don't want to say call people out, but almost call people out like, hey, why didn't you hit your goal? Let's help you find the stumbling blocks. Because just like you said at the beginning, Summer, when I came into your practice, the reason I could see things so quickly is because I'm not attached to it and I see things from a very different perspective than you do. So it's easy for me to find those. Just like in teams, a lot of times it's easy for us to find what the stumbling blocks are because we're not working in there day in and day out. Like front office find back office solutions all the time because they're not working in the trenches with it. So I love that you don't just gloss over the top. And I think that's a huge reason your practice is very successful.
Well, and what I will say is what's even more amazing is these are called accountability meetings. And so that name is not, for no reason. What I love is it's not me calling out my team members. It's actually the other team members saying, okay, wait, so you didn't make the goal. Tell me why. Let's really kind of think through this. And we don't spend, loads of time because the whole goal is these people should come to the meeting prepared. And if they didn't make it, they should have come up with some solutions themselves. But then the rest of the team will kind of call that out and just say, do you need feedback as to things we can see that would help? Because you're exactly right, Kiera, that a lot of times, it's my marketing person who actually was able to see, a hygienist problem, and fix it. So
right.
What's neat is it's actually, if you would actually watch me in those meetings, it's truly not me running the show. It's really them. And they've really developed this level of accountability with each other that they don't allow the other team members to kind of come in with hazy goals. Because I love to say, if you come in with fuzzy goals, you're probably going to get fuzzy results. And they just don't allow that, And so a lot of times they'll correct each other or they'll help each other or they'll say, hey, we've got to make sure you can track that next time because you weren't able to track that well. And so you're getting kind of hazy, fuzzy results.
I love that. But I'm going to play a little bit of a devil's advocate because I was there with you just over a year ago now in your office. And I remember we popped into this accountability meeting. So I think structure wise, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I see in your practice is that you guys have your bigger meeting of the monthly one, and then you have weekly accountability check-ins. Is that the structure?
Correct. Okay. Yes. So we have one big monthly one that we actually dive into deeper KPIs per department. So that's really the deeper KPI dive. And then sometimes there's role playing, scripting, things like that. But then the weekly ones are actually these usually 30 minutes or less of going through person by person or department by department and truly just doing the actual accountability for that week or 2 weeks or what have you.
I love that. And when I was there a year ago, I remember we were sitting there, and this is where I want to have you help because I think a lot of doctors and office managers struggle with this and you've been able to overcome. A year ago when I was there, I remember watching your team go around, and I think the example was having them they were supposed to be set up for patients on time every time. And they hadn't done that. They were able to have, I think it was 70%, but their goal is to be at 90%. Okay. And so I remember when you went around person by person by person, and they said so our goal this week is just to do it better. And I remember it went to the next person and I could not help myself. I interjected and I was like, wait. What does better actually mean? But I can do this because I don't work in there day in and day out. And they know my job is to be a consultant and to call those hard questions that a lot of times as team members and dentists and office managers and team members considering, it's hard for us to call each other out, we think. So Summer, how did you work through that with your team? Because I'm going to say a year ago, I did see that with some of your team members. So how do you guys get around that to have these accountability meetings truly be the accountability meeting and not just the reporting without any actual intentionality behind it?
Yeah, well, and I'm not going to lie. I would love to say we're perfect and every single person, every single time has it dialed in. Well, anybody who onboards new people and things like that know that there's a learning curve, or sometimes people are just kind of in a funk that week or two. So the reporting isn't perfect. But what I will say is the thing that I did is I actually went to all of my department heads and I sat with them first and foremost, because I always feel like you need key people who are on the boat and understand the reasons behind it. Because I always feel like if you've got those key people in those meetings, they're the ones who are going to drive so much of that intensity and things like that. So if I didn't have them on board, it was hard to get everybody else on board. So I kind of pulled them back and said, do you guys understand why we're doing this? Do you understand how important it is? And if we're trying to create a better experience for our patients and better habits, it's going to take us being extremely intentional on a week by week basis. So do you understand how to set these goals? Could you talk to your other team members about how to set them, what they need to look like, how to track them, and how to report them? Once I got them kind of more on board, it made it easier, I think, for other team members to start to feel like, okay, I kind of understand why we're there. So you're not wrong. I mean, it used to be such a surface level thing, but we found that it made the meetings not even worth attending.
Right. Absolutely. And I think so many offices struggle with that. Like, why are we even here when we don't feel like we're making any progress or traction at all?
Correct.
We're checking off the box to do the meeting because that's what Kiera and Mark said, or that's what this book said. Like, but what is the whole point behind these meetings? The point is to move your practice forward, to hit those 3 goals for the year that you're aiming for, to help make it easier and more efficient for the team. Like, that's the why behind this. It's not just checking the box. And if checking the box isn't getting the results, you need to shake it up and change it.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And that's exactly what I try to get away from, is if we're going to come to a meeting, I want to set the expectation of what we're going to get out of it at the end. Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but team members don't want to wake up early and come to a morning huddle or, attend a lunch meeting or a 2-hour team meeting and feel like it was just, check the box off. This is something we have to do. Do I get paid for this type thing?
Exactly.
Really good AT members, they don't want to do that. They don't want to waste their time.
I think a lot of people, like being a team member, I remember meetings and I was like, this is so dumb. It's a waste of my time. Like, we sit there, people usually complain, we get nothing out of it, and we start our day off terribly. Or I have to stay late. I remember running some of my own team meetings and I'd like look around the room to see who was engaged. And I had like 3 people just like zoned out, checking out the window. And I'm like, clearly I'm failing as an office manager. Like, they have checked out. But I didn't do a good job. I remember looking back and wondering why that was the case. And I remember I didn't have it. It was like I was learning alongside of my team, trying to figure out like, well, how do I even run these meetings and what's the purpose? Like, I'm just checking the boxes. Doctor said to do meetings. I'm doing meetings. But I didn't have that intentionality, like you said, behind it, an expectation of why are we having these meetings? What should you be getting out of them? And if we're not getting that out of them, we need to change it to where we are getting that out of these.
Well, and what I sometimes find is people want to combine too many things into one meeting. And I think that if you try to have 7,000 different things you're trying to accomplish, you're going to hit everything at a super shallow level with 0 results. So I'm a big fan of like us going into that meeting with each person doing, we call it quick hit 5-minute KPIs. And they're really just going to quickly say, because I have narrowed down those KPIs to just 2 to 3 things per position. And so I want them to come in, tell the rest of the team quickly, kind of, this were the KPIs, these are the highlights, these were the lowlights. These were where, I just didn't kill it. Kind of like you say, their time to own it. But then we really only have 3 rocks is what we kind of say. We only have a few things that it's like, we've got to get accomplished by the end of this meeting. And one of our last ones was, as we brought in some new team members, walking through the touch points from when a person walks in to when a person leaves. And that was kind of the whole goal after our KPIs was, let's walk through this and make sure everybody's on the same page from the first phone call to when they walk in to when they leave. Do we have the touch points figured out? And that was it. I've just sometimes seen where people want to fit in, let's go through KPIs, let's set new goals, let's talk about the break room, the refrigerator stinks.
And can I get that time off and go on vacation? And what about, and actually I was behind and, Mrs. Jones and that tooth, and it's just gone. Like, you lose them.
Yep. And then we start talking about, my next vacation, and people are just all talking over each other. And so that's just like, if we don't have some sort of structure and some sort of expectation at the end, I think that once again, you're paying for these people to be sitting there. And I don't know if it's just me, but as a dentist, I don't want to sit and pay people with 0 return on investment. I want to know that when we leave there, we've solved a problem. We have figured out a way to raise our standard of care. We've solved a continuing situation once and for all. So I am just a big advocate of trying to make those meetings, no matter what meeting it may be, have a consistent solution expectation at the end of it.
I love that so much, because as a team member, if I know that that's what's happening in this meetings there, I expect that to happen. And I'm going to be contributing to that because I know we're leaving that meeting with a solution, and that's the expectation of it. And I love that you said, so like, just so our listeners, I really like to do like quick like highlights at the end so you can implement this. Summer does her big monthly meeting where you kind of do all the KPI deep dive, look to see. And KPI, for those of you just joining us, I didn't know what a KPI was. I had no clue. People threw that word around, or that little acronym, and I'm like, Kiera's pretty incredible. Like, I have no idea what KPI is.
Nice.
But, clearly I'm going to think K is Kiera always, but KPI is key performance indicator. They're the vitals, and we'll talk about KPIs, but the KPIs really just tell the practice if they're healthy or if the practice is sick, like, and in what area it's doing it. So that's just a quick like idea. But then Summer, you've broken it down. So it's very simply, you guys do a deep dive at the beginning of the month. Then you do your quick accountability check-ins. Every person brings their information to the table. They have their 3 to 5 minute quick around the table. Did they do it? Did they not? And if not, what the solution is and what we can count on them for. And then you guys do the solution at the end of, hey, our problem was we're going to do touch points. So we're going to get through this so everybody's on the same page and we're done. And to me as a team member, when I hear that, it feels like, oh, like that's so easy, that's so doable. And I know what I can count on, how long I'm going to be at that meeting, and what my expectation of what I'm going to walk away from it and what I need to do to be prepared. Because I think most team members want to be prepared. Most team members want to make their doctors happy. Most team members want to help grow the practice, but a lot of times they don't know how. And you've just simplified that very easily for every single team member to be able to do that in your practice.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that is important is, like I said in the very beginning, is keep that cadence up. Even if I'm not here, my practice director, a team lead, somebody's going to be running that meeting. So if I go on vacation, it's still happening and I still get the notes. I know what's going on. I know what goals people have set, things like that. But I think if people have it, don't have it, don't have it, that really throws people off. I think that it's kind of like kids too, right? Everybody just likes to have that rhythm. And I think when people get off of it, it does throw people for a loop. So trying to maintain that level of cadence is so important. The other thing that I do find, Kiera, is, and I see this in my own team members who I adore, but a lot of times in those little weekly or even 2-week goals, you're trying to find a measure that's going to support whatever monthly goal you have.
Correct.
Well, sometimes what I find is either A, they're coming up with something that's just part of their job anyway. So, I'm trying to think of something like that. I mean, I don't want somebody to say, I'm going to keep the sterile line super clean.
Cool.
Week.
You're already doing that. That's part of your job.
Yep.
It doesn't feel super great. That's not growing yourself a little bit beyond. These are growth meetings. They're supposed to be pushing us to make us better.
Correct. So sometimes I have found people want to get better at what their job already naturally entails. So we don't want that. We want to create new good habits that are above and beyond. And then, sometimes I see people, and I have the most rock star, amazing head hygienist, and she will sometimes bite off really lofty goals and try to get them done in 2 weeks. And so she'll be like, I am going to increase my efficiency by 30%. Well, that might be a little tough when you don't have very specific actions to go along with it. It's kind of like, I'm going to lose weight. Now go, or I'm going to lose 10 pounds with no specific actions as to what you're going to do. And so it's like, just like if you were going to lose 10 pounds, you're like, okay, I'm going to exercise 3 days a week for 30 minutes at exactly this time. I'm going to cut out sugary sodas, right? I mean, you have some sort of action that you're doing every single week. Well, what I find is sometimes, having too lofty of goals without truly implementable action steps, nobody does anything. And then they have to come back and report, oh, I didn't make it. And that makes them unhappy. The team is then asking what needs to be done. So I try to kind of sway them to figure out how, if you know that that's your big goal for the month, can you break that into something smaller that you can consistently do? So,
and that you can actually achieve. Like, I love that you broke that down of like, to lose 10 pounds, I don't change my entire lifestyle that day. I exercise 3 times and I've got a consistent time, and I cut out sugary sodas. I could go down the whole gamut of, and I'm only eating lettuce, and I'm only going to do this, and I'm going to sleep. Like, but that's not realistic. No one, I mean, there might be 1% of the population in this world that will actually hold true to that. But the bulk of human being changing behavior takes smaller steps to actually see traction in that. And I love that you, as the mediator, the leader of this group, or your practice director, or whomever it is, their job is to make sure that the goals aren't too lofty or aren't too non-lofty, so a little weak. And you can kind of get it right in that sweet spot to where people are seeing progress without being overzealous or underzealous, and they're actually seeing momentum happen. Because I believe that as team members, when you can see results happen, you're much more motivated and excited and encouraged to keep going, as opposed to always coming back reporting that you didn't hit the goal.
Yes. Yeah.
Or that it was too easy and you don't grow.
Yeah. You're still in the same place a year ago as you were today. So nobody wants to see that either.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome, Summer. Well, I appreciate you so much being on this today. Guys, I'm going to have Summer back on. We're going to go on another episode. We're going to talk about getting traction. She kind of alluded a little bit to sometimes her goals are for 2 weeks. And we're going to do another episode with her on traction in another episode of the Dental A-Team. But thank you, Summer, so much for being on the Dental A-Team podcast. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you, Kiera. Thank you so much for having me. It's always fun to brainstorm and think through things and talk with you. So
Absolutely. All right, Dental A-Team listeners, this was Summer Kassmel, and we'll catch you next time. And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental A-Team podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.